I'm JR from the JR Sport League Show.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting truly great candidates for your roles? It seems impossible to find them, but they have to be out there somewhere, right? Well, they're not hard to find when you know where to go, and that place is ZipRecruiter. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. And because these people are actively looking for jobs just like yours, it's easy to find the right person right away. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. But if you're not using ZipRecruiter, you're missing out. So see what it's like when the impossible is easy. When you go to ZipRecruiter.com/free right now to try ZipRecruiter for free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter.com/free. Never miss out on.
Savings are heating up, and so are the summer super deals at the used car superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. You don't need super strength to get approved for credit. Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is super easy on the Motor Mile with financing options for every budget. Sheeler makes car buying easy with the hottest brands all in one location. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Over 900 used vehicles in stock now and ready to move. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, and savings. Need some summer spending cash? Sheeler will buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Plus super money for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with over 900 used vehicles in stock now. No games, no gimmicks, just summer super deals at the used car superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer. Locally owned for over 50 years. ID1 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hi, I'm Chuck from Aquatrack Adventures in Salem. The Virginia Talk Radio Network and InsaneRadioDeals.com have helped our company grow by sharing our company's message throughout Central and Southside Virginia. The gift cards and experiences sold on InsaneRadioDeals.com have brought us many new customers. If you're a business that wants to grow with a message that resonates and gets results, I highly recommend InsaneRadioDeals.com and the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Simply put, it works.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
If you're wondering when we're going to have some kind of like official order in the Fast Lane for our TroStlaw.com fast takes and our high school football previews, we're not that organized. Let's not kid ourselves when it comes to that. At least not right now at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. When you combine the sales initiatives that we have with what we're trying to do to actually bring good content, which that's a challenge, but it's the fun part of the job. It's why TJ and I and Ty and Trey on the morning warm-up all do what we do, because we always want to have that. And this is the fun time of year where we're back to football. Schools are back in session. I know kids don't like that, but parents, we most definitely do. Can't wait till next Tuesday. Bedford Hills Elementary School, first grade, gets 2 new wonderful spunky additions, and excited for that. So we're at the point where that's the fun part. But look, we're going to have different people. Truth be told, a lot of it depends on where my sales schedule takes me on a given day. And we've been to Amherst before. And earlier today, I was down in the Rustburg area. Again, petulant person that I am, I'm not going to mention the business or the organization's name until they're a partner at the Virginia Talk Radio Network, at which point we are proud to mention you as often as we possibly can, because that's just the VIP experience that we provide. So now that we got that out of the way, the Rustburg Red Devils are one of those teams where, kind of like us, they're trying to take their game up a notch. Solid, steady program. Rustburg historically, Jack Baker was a phenomenal coach for what Rustburg was, which is a program that you get to the end of the Mike Sharness era and they're contending for state championships, and they had some down years after that. He was a good stabilizing coach and knows how to maximize where a program might be at a given time. And he's done a good job with Nelson County. That's a program that I mean, they were kind of the Dogwood District's version of the Liberty Minutemen. Although, truth be told, I don't think there's a program in Virginia maybe that's in as challenging a spot as the Liberty Minutemen are. And we'll get to that later when we actually dive deep into that program. But Jack Baker, with the success he's had at Nelson County, has backed up the fact that he had consistently put Rustburg into a 5, 6, 7-win high school football program, meaning 500 or slightly better. Never quite had that extra zip the way that LCA has. Certainly, laugh all you want about the idea of bringing in talent and how they're able to do that. And that's, again, a topic for later. But they never quite had that, or even the upside of schools like Heritage and Brookville in their day. They weren't quite in those categories, but they've always been solid. And when the right crop of ingrown players, homegrown players come through, they're a team that can burst from that 5, 6, 7-win team to maybe the 8, 9, 10 regular season wins and a deeper postseason run. But they're at the point now where I think it's justifiable. First of all, why you would take this job is relatively easy for a coach like Trey Ross. He mentioned that earlier. And part of it was about whether or not he's got a little bit of a leg up on why take this job. Combining the history with Rustburg with the fact that there are a couple of former coaches involved with the program, including Mike Sharnas, who's been around there for a while. Defensive coordinator Chris Watts is at Rustburg now, but he was the Liberty head coach back when Liberty was consistently kind of in their own version of where Rustburg was. A good, solid program year in and year out. And Liberty would like to get back there. But this is what a part of the appeal. And you combine that with a town that backs up their high school football and high school sports programs. We won't just say football because they won a state title in 2021 in softball for Rustburg. They've been successful in basketball in different iterations, boys and girls. They are a solid program athletically across the board. But like a lot of them in this area, they embrace it for a while. And TJ, again, we can go on for a while about it, but it's part of what for us makes it fun to talk high school sports because, I know we're based technically in Lynchburg, but the whole Seminole district is our footprint. And really, to an extent, the Dogwood district. As we cover the Seminole more, it's easier. They did themselves the favor that the Dogwood has not done, to my knowledge, of having a media day, which, again, that's free publicity for us. Like, have the media day, Dogwood district. We'd probably show up for it as well as the News in Advance and WSET and Fox 21 or Fox 27 or whatever Jermaine Farrell's group is. And, of course, Eric Johnson and Brooke at WSLS and WDBJ. Like, we'll all show up for it. So, it's on you whether you want the free publicity or not. But the cool thing, even in spite of not doing that for the Dogwood, is the area cares about their local sports. And Rustburg embodies that. And I think it's part of the appeal for a coach like Trey Ross is they care about it. They're not the resources of, an LCA or even the Lynchburg schools, but there's enough there where you go, all right, we can consistently have a good, solid program. We're fighting an uphill battle, but we've got enough to win some games here. And then when the cards break right, we can do a little bit more. And that is a big part of the reason why a Rustburg program would be appealing, even though there's been some coaching turnover over the last couple of years.
Everyone likes an underdog story. I will say that when I was in high school, we were in the Cap 8. We didn't get this kind of exposure from media. So to see these high school kids have an opportunity that kids that I grew up with didn't really get unless you had committed to State, Duke, or Carolina, it's great to see. So,
well,
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, I think, because your background, you're from the Triangle, correct?
Yes, I am.
To me, that's such a transient area. Not that Lynchburg has not become one because of, ironically enough, we're talking about transient areas and you're an import from there to Lynchburg because of Liberty University. I mean, that's a big part of why we're blessed to have you here,
Absolutely.
TJ. But Lynchburg has that. But I think part of the appeal to Lynchburg is, and I would say this, I'm back in the day, I would never move back to Lynchburg. Didn't want to do it. Back in the day, Lynchburg not having an interstate, largest at the time, I don't know if it is, but for a while it was the largest metropolitan area. We'll use air quotes because Lynchburg is not a metropolitan area, but ride with. It's the largest city that did not have an interstate per capita. Lynchburg, Virginia did. And now it's kind of nice because it still preserves, even with people like TJ and others who are from outside the area who have stuck around Lynchburg. I think part of the appeal, I would imagine, is there's a level of small town charm, but the fact that you can also add in by the Lynchburg area, we mean Rustburg and Appomattox and Alta Vista and Bedford and Amherst and Madison Heights. Shout out to Hogtown, and then of course Nelson County. All those areas, it's the appeal that you still have a small town feel, but Lynchburg has grown enough to where, like, again, when I left in 2004, to go off to college down in Memphis, Tennessee, using the appropriate M-Town gang symbols, of course, for those that are watching at Fastlane, Ed Lane, and VTR and Sports on Facebook Live. But it's like, I'll never move back. There's not enough here. By 2013, downtown Lynchburg is not what it was, but it was enough where you're like, okay, there's good. And because of that, and then there's more demand for houses, people move outside the area. So all of a sudden, other areas can get built up. And that means there's going to be more talent naturally for your Heritages and your Glasses and your Jefferson Forest. And certainly they benefited from it. But Rustburg is an indirect beneficiary of that as well. Appomattox to an extent also, where families may be leaving the area because it's cheaper and you can have more land out in the country, or you're just looking to move out that way because it's cheaper and you need to find a house. And all that is to say that I don't get on like socioeconomic elements of this, but it's how like a program like Rustburg still preserves its small town feel, but yet there's enough there if they're a football coach to go, all right, we got enough to where we can reasonably be on a baseline, a playoff caliber team. And in some years we might win a game or two or better than that. And that's where as a program, you see enough potential as a coach. You're like, I can unlock this.
No, for sure. And from an that's where economics comes in and benefits these teams, because you see people that work in Charlottesville or outside of Lynchburg. Lynchburg is the cheapest. So is Madison Heights.
Oh God, yes.
Housing.
Oh, by far.
I mean, look, I had a neighbor who worked all the way in Roanoke, and he lives in Lynchburg. And you know why? Because Lynchburg housing, nothing beats it from everything else surrounding.
And that's not even considering the fact that like it's gotten more expensive to live in Lynchburg.
Yeah.
But relative to like Charlottesville, where Charlottesville proper is very expensive, not to mention, I'm not to get all political here. That's for 100.9 in the Virginia's Talk Station app. But like it's like a flip of Lynchburg, politically speaking, in terms of the way a lot of ideologicals. And look, for the record, I love Lynchburg and I love Charlottesville. So like, it doesn't really matter to me. I'm pretty libertarian, as you know, if you've listened to the Fast Lane long enough. But those are things that just make it fascinating to live in an area like this. And I bring all that up because like I get from Trey Ross's perspective, there are football reasons, and you need those first and foremost, because football coaches want to go to a place where they have the opportunity to win, where they have hope that they can put a winning team together. I just couldn't resist. Really, it's the idea that you can put a viable game plan together to do it. And some coaches need more and are more demanding than others. But if you just want an opportunity, I get why when Trey Ross said this, why Rustburg? Yes, there's the appeal of the coaches, and that's the initial question of the brain trust that's behind this with Chris Watts on the defensive coordinator spot, former head coach at Liberty, Mike Sharnas, who had great success when Alta Vista won their initial pre-Juan Thornhill football championships for states, and has won at Rustburg as well at a very high level. Why that would appeal to Trey Ross?
Absolutely. No, it was a great job. So I'm from a small town, North Carolina, and it reminds me just like that. So it feels like home every day. When I came and interviewed for the job, I knew then it was like, took me back to North Carolina, where I'm from, my hometown, and then having the opportunity to coach guys like this and be around some very experienced and very successful head coaches was something that I couldn't turn down the opportunity to do. The Lord has blessed me with a job and blessed me with a great staff and great kids to coach and do. So it was very, very exciting.
But we talk about this often with Ben Cates of newsadvance.com and with different sports anchors from WSET's Dave Walls to WFXR's Jermaine Farrell and Brooke Leonard and Eric Johnson of WSLS, like back when he was doing it with WDBJ before he went to Virginia Tech, Travis Wells, like all of them have mentioned that that's one of the appeals to a lot of these programs in the area.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But there is the reality that you want to have enough talent at the area. And I think this is part of the reason why when you're looking at Rustburg, the idea of expecting, generally speaking, 5, 6, 7 wins is reasonable. And again, not everybody in the Seminole District, they're not all going to be able to win, 8, 9, 10 games. Like somebody's going to feel disappointed at the end of the year. Like it's a zero-sum game when you get into district play. Somebody's got to lose the football games. And like Liberty's the obvious candidate that just because they're in their first year and more on them, but I think they kind of understand like the first part of the season for Liberty when they're non-district play is so crucial to snap the losing streak and play close in a lot of games. Like you can have a few wins in your first year, if any, but if you're starting to fight and show progress, you can see signs of optimism. I think Liberty's in a unique spot with that. But for the rest of the Seminole, it's in that spot. And so to do that, you want difference makers. And for Trey Ross, you got a defensive back in Alex Dunn, who's committed to the University of Virginia. And look, I mean, again, to get my usher on for a moment here in the fast lane, I did not see that coming at all. I've seen him play before for a couple of years at Rustburg. And I thought, he's the type of guy that clearly could have Liberty, JMU, group of 5 type of offers. But you grow, and he's grown. He looks bigger now than he's been. Yeah. And just the length and height the weight, he has added weight to his credit, Alex Dunn's, the Virginia commit. He's added muscle mass, which that's part of the appeal at the next level, especially for Virginia, given that when you're talking like Tech and Virginia, and both of them would put them in a strength program, but both of them have coaches that are on the hot seats. Yeah. And because when you have coaches on the hot seat, and even though they might not be around to honor Alex Dunn's commitment, and for Alex Dunn's sake, you hope Virginia has a good enough year that Tony Elliott's back and you can keep progressing toward that goal of being a Power 4 scholarship athlete at the University of Virginia. Like, you'd love to have that. Yeah. NIL, pay for play, it all comes with it. It's a blessing for guys that can particularly go that route. But I've seen it up close in person at some of the district football media days. I'm like, okay, I get how Alex Dunn has grown from a college prospect to one that now has more appeal, because you can't teach the size and the length and all of those traits. But it happened really quickly. And Alex detailed that this was not something even that he thought would happen as quickly as it did.
When I went to Virginia, well, actually, I had my first couple of workouts with Coach Rudd. I had one workout with Coach Rudd. And when I actually got up to Virginia, the whole atmosphere, everything about it just made me feel like I was at home. It was like a home away from home. So the decision felt very easy. So honestly, I didn't see a point of wasting time. Just wanted to get there and just felt great.
The Coach Rudd part, by the way, is Coach John Rodzinski for Virginia and the defensive coordinator. But you put that out there, and we know Ari Reed's a good running back who returns. And nobody was going to be what Gideon Davidson was last year. Again, let's just keep it real for a moment in the fast lane. Like, I don't know if we'll see somebody of that caliber for quite a long time in the area. Like, he's projected, as we've discussed before, and you've got the great audiograms that you've put up for us, TJ, at Fastlane Edlane on Twitter and Instagram. But Eric McLean of the ACC Network, and coming soon, it'll be Antonio Williams, the Clemson wide receiver. They all expect Gideon to play as a true freshman at Clemson, which is a national title aspiration program. More on that, Fast Five at 5-ish in just a moment, because the preseason polls have come out for college sports. Which, by the way, I don't put a ton of stock into, but whatever. Especially coaches' polls where like SIDs vote on it.
Oh yeah.
but there's talent that's there. Guys can fly under the radar. Ari Reed's one of those, but he's smart enough to realize that there's interest now to an extent in him. And again, I kind of view him as more of probably a group of 5 guy. If you're talking reasonable for a program, an ODU, a JMU, a Liberty, and there's no shame in that. Like, you play well, you might be able to transfer up. If not, maybe you love the spot that much and you stick around and it's financially worth your while. Like, those are not bad consolation prizes if you're in that spot. And I get, players want to go to the biggest programs possible. And if you want to stay in Virginia, you're thinking Virginia Tech and Virginia. But I mean, you can win big at Liberty. I think you can win big at JMU. ODU is potentially in that category too. And so there's a talent there. But I think the thing I like, if I'm just considering it from Rustburg's standpoint, again, somebody's going to lose games in the Seminole. Rustburg, they hope it's not them. But it's the idea of leveling up and being knowledgeable of that.
I would say it's an expectation every year for us to level up and get better. We have a new head coach, so the program is different. Everything's harder. So when we play in the season, it'll be easier and we'll win more games.
I mean, if you listen to good teams, they generally say that practice is really hard and it prepares them to make games more fun and easy. And it's not always true for some. I mean, the better programs, they can have harder practices because they have more depth and talent. Like, I'd imagine the practice at a place like Ohio State is harder than if they're playing Purdue, for example. Yeah. Like, let's use like the most lowest common denominator of opponent example for that. Practice at Texas is a lot harder than they were playing like Mississippi State. Like, I don't know if they did last year, Georgia. I get it. It's true. But you got to still balance that. And when you have more talent, more expectations, goes back to what Trey Ross mentioned, which is you got to balance those type of prospects and that talent with the fact that the expectation is almost always at Rustburg to be at least 500 and be in the high school football playoffs for Class 3. But with greater talent does come an increased level of expectation.
Yeah, I was blessed enough to play college ball, so I had a little bit of experience in the recruiting field, and I knew these guys both have the talent to play at the next level. It's just a matter of when and who pulls the trigger on offering them. So putting these guys out there, marketing their skills, marketing them as a person was really cool. And getting those phone calls and get to explain them to coaches and tell them what a gem they are, a diamond in the rough. I saw it coming and I was like, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to hear his excitement on the phone once it happened. And once he committed, I knew talking to him that he felt at home there and that's where he wanted to be. So we were happy to support him in that decision. So,
you go ahead.
The Seminole District reminds me of all the schools in Charlotte, Shelby, North Carolina area.
How so? I'm not familiar. You are.
So Mecklenburg, toughest competition out there. A lot of guys get recruited out there, especially if you go past Charlotte, Shelby, and Crest. two high schools near my alma mater, Gardner-Webb, a lot people from Bama would get recruited to Bama over there. So you look at the Seminole District in itself, it takes me to Mecklenburg County, including where Randy Moss coached at one point in Mecklenburg. And it's just, I just see this competition that's so stiff that even schools like Rustburg can develop talent like this, still finish maybe 4-8, and still be considered a great program.
Yeah, it's amazing because of that. I mean, I think Rustburg is going to be at least a 5-win caliber team because they can get some wins out of district. But still, I mean, you're in a spot where you'd like to be able to pick up more when you've got a UVA talent like an Alex Ross, when you've got a high caliber running back like an Ari Reed. You sense there's an opportunity for you, but I mean, JF senses the same thing. Glass senses the same thing. Having gotten bigger, Amherst had a lot of close games. We know about Heritage and their pedigree with Brad Bradley. Certainly Liberty or LCA is obviously the example because, they've won it before. Brookville, they've got a lot of experience, and Cam Thomas, who's Logan's son, is obviously getting hype and attention. We'll get to Brookville at a later time. But you factor all that in, it's going to be weird. Somebody's going to lose games. This may be a district where you got teams that are kind of a 5-win team that has a below 500 Seminole District record, but yet they're in the playoffs and you don't want to face them. Kind of like Amherst would have been last year. I think you're going to find some of those where a lot of these teams, someone may lose a bunch of close games, but if they can find their way in the playoffs, there's still going to be that asterisk of we don't want to play this team because they might be a real dangerous threat. And that is obviously something we'll continue to unpack. Meanwhile, Fast 5 at 5-ish, we will table that for tomorrow because the AP poll has come out. Liberty and JMU are featured prominently in that. The ACC, they have more than one team in the AP top 25
schools,
poll.
Baby.
Yes, they are. 2 in the top 10. I'm skeptical of one of them, just naturally speaking, of course. But 3 are in the top 25, and JMU and Liberty we're in the also receiving votes category. Trey will get you updated on that in the morning warm-up tomorrow. We'll actually do that to kick off covering the Commonwealth next here in the Fast Lane because those 2 Virginia group of 5 schools were featured in it, including the one that will be part of covering the Commonwealth with JMU. Shane Metland to kick it off here in the Fast Lane, VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker open VTRN Sports.
Savings are heating up, and so are the summer super deals at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile. You don't need super strength to get approved for credit. Sheeler owns the finance company. Getting approved for credit is super easy on the Motor Mile with financing options for every budget. Sheeler makes car buying easy with the hottest brands all in one location. Cars, trucks, vans, SUVs. Many have miles in the teens, remaining factory warranties, and some are even local one-owner vehicles. Over 900 used vehicles in stock now and ready to move. More than any other dealer in the area, plus exceptional service, selection, and savings. Need some summer spending cash? Sheeler will buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Plus super money for your trade. Volume selling means volume pricing, and we've got the volume with over 900 used vehicles in stock now. No games, no gimmicks, just summer super deals at the Used Car Superstore on the Sheeler Motor Mile, your premier used car dealer. Locally owned for over 50 years. ID1 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Hot weather is right around the corner. Save money on those summer cooling bills by upgrading those old drafty windows. Discover energy efficient, easy cleaning tilt-in windows now with Collins Custom Builders. Our customers have relied on us for 35 years to provide the best in windows, siding, gutters, and more. Plan early and call today for your free estimate. Find us online at collinscustombuilders.com.
Warm weather means traveling. Hi, I'm Randy Trost from Trost Law with a couple of safety reminders. Always wear your seatbelt. Don't drive distracted or impaired. And remember, it's better to safely arrive a little later than being in an auto accident. Those things can make a big difference between a fun family trip or a painful alternative. At Trost Law, I hope you never need our services, but if you do, we're here to help you at 777-HURT or trostlaw.com.
The feel of the beach is perfect. Relaxing with family and friends. Bonding over memorable meals fresh from the seas. It's a beach experience, and it's in our backyard at 801 Raw Bar in downtown Lynchburg. They're family-owned and family-operated, bringing you that relaxing beach house vibe while you enjoy the freshest seafood from our region, including raw oysters, king crabs, and snow crab. Not really a seafood person? Try their fresh handcrafted burgers, subs, pizza, and salads. Step into the relaxing beach house vibe at 801 Raw Bar on Church Street in downtown Lynchburg.
Join the Lynchburg Hillcats at Bank of the James Stadium this summer for any of your favorite nightly promotions. New this year, Senior Sluggers Tuesdays, where members of the Silver Sluggers Club get in free. Wednesday is Winning Wednesday, where purchasing one ticket gets you into every Wednesday game the rest of the year. As always, we'll have Thirsty Thursdays and giveaways and fireworks on the weekend, and free admission for Kids Club members on Sunday. Get your tickets today at lynchburg-hillcats.com.
With MedGuard Alert, you're never alone. You can connect with medical professionals anywhere, anytime. And now MedGuard is introducing our exclusive new CareWatch. If you need help quickly, use it from anywhere to contact medical professionals. No cell phone required. The CareWatch is not only a life-saving medical alert device, it's a revolutionary health monitoring system that checks your blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, and much more. And here's the best part. If you have Medicaid, you may qualify to get your CareWatch for free. The CareWatch is only available through MedGuard Alert. Call us right now. We have monitoring programs starting as low as $1 a day. The call is free, activation is free, shipping is free, and no contract is required. Remember, with Medicaid, you may qualify to get your CareWatch for free. Call us to get your CareWatch right now.
800-681-8020. 800-681-8020. 800-681-8020. That's 800-681-8020.
Sometimes it's okay to listen to that devil on your shoulder. That's what we did at InsaneRadioDeals.com. We're taking off 66.6% off select items on the site right now. That includes Lynchburg Hillcats, General Public, and Premium Reserve tickets that come with a $10 food voucher. Such a devilish deal. You would have to use an evil laugh. All you need to do is use the promo code INFERNO at the checkout now through this Sunday at InsaneRadioDeals.com.
Laugh all you want at the Virginia Cavaliers and the fact that they acquired over 30 players in the transfer portal and have a fairly soft schedule in what's a must-win season for football coach Tony Elliott. But they've apparently had to spend as much money as they have because of the volume of injuries that have unfolded. On the offensive line, first it was left tackle Monroe Mills. He's out for the upcoming season with a torn ACL. Now it's right tackle Michaelan Thomas, broken bone in his foot, out an extended period of time, plus 3 defensive backs with big injuries, and it's no wonder they spent big money.
Virginia's source for sports. VTRN Sports, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
They're not quite in the top 25 poll, but they are good enough for us to start.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth. A look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with the JMU Duke.
Shane_DNR Sports. That's the Twitter handle, or DNRonline.com to just read the articles of Shane Metlin and his colleague Katie Harper talking JMU Dukes. And Shane is with us here to kick off covering the Commonwealth. Shane, they didn't quite make it into the AP top 25 poll, but they made the others receiving votes category with 9 out of that grouping. So we'll call them top 35, top 40 team to start the year for the JMU Dukes. Fair and reasonable?
Yeah, I'd say it's fair, reasonable. I mean, it's a program we've seen around that level, crack the top 25 a few times here in recent years. So, I mean, they're on people's radar, I think, in that regard, and they're getting mentioned among the top, group of 5, group of 6 conference teams here to start the season. They're getting mentioned with the Boise's and some of the other ones who are right there along those lines. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me they got a few votes and are kind of there, and they're going to have a chance to prove it early in the season too. So we'll see if they end up cracking the top 25 if they get off to a good start.
Well, you mentioned that. I mean, they've got Louisville early in the year, and Louisville is also in that other receiving votes category for the JMU Dukes. For you and Katie Harper, from what you've been able to see out of practice for JMU, is this team gelling as quickly as possible, especially given that you got 2 quarterback options right now with Saluka and Barnett, and obviously the Barnett injury with no contact, we don't know where it is, but how that hangs in the balance?
Yeah, I think you put it correctly. They're gelling as well as possible, and maybe as well as almost any program can right now, because everybody's going to have a lot of new players, a lot of transfer players. I think that's part of what you're looking for in the portal is those guys who can step right in and understand what you're trying to do, understand your culture, understand your playbook. And I think they've got that. I mean, it looks pretty solid. I mean, I'm not the best judge of talent or even just what's going on the football field compared to some people who really know the game, but it looks good so far. Barnett looks solid in what we've seen. I think he and Sluka are both probably taking some reps with the ones right now. So remains to be seen what ends up happening with the quarterback situation, but at least it's guys that have been in the system before. Even with Sluka being a transfer, he's been in this coaching staff system for multiple years. So I think that also really helps.
Shane _DNR Sports with us here in the Fast Lane. A couple more for you, Shane. One of those being, look, I have not covered the Dukes the way you and Katie Harper have for an extended period of time, but former safety Q Reed, as well as former O-lineman Cole Potts. Q is going to be the football analyst for the entire season, and then Potts will be there for home games for JMU. Good additions? Will they provide good quality insight, or are they just going to be warm bodies there?
No, I think those guys will both be good at that. Q Reed was always a really great interview when he was a player. He's popular choice, I think. If for nothing else, people remember he came up with a big hit to secure a win against App State in their first FBS season. So he's always going to be a little bit in the JMU lore for that. And it's great to see those guys continuing to want to be around the program because we talk about all the transfers and everything. It's good to see guys who played for several years and graduated and still want to be around the program that they were from.
Virginia Tech at JMU women's basketball is November 23rd, so we got a while to get to that. So sorry to the Lady Dukes and Lady Hokies. Chris Coleman of TechSideline.com, who's on hold, can understand we're not going to get to that with him today. But one thing we might get to with a lot of our guests is this concept that came out a couple of days ago with JMU announcing that the roundup idea, you go to the grocery store and it's like, would you like to round up to the nearest dollar amount to support X organization or whatever the case may be? Bookstore roundups, Friday through Sunday of home football games. How big of an impact do you think this creative marketing approach will be?
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, it's one of those things that you can't hurt. You can't hurt. It's there. It's all going to be kind of a bonus. There are people who definitely go shop in the bookstores and buy their things during the season. I mean, especially you'll see that on homecoming and family weekend and things like that, where parents are in town to, they want to stock up and know where they can find that stuff. So I don't know if it's going to be a multi-million-dollar endeavor that's going to, just allow them to buy any player they want or anything. But I could see it being a little bit of a boost for them financially, and you definitely can't lose money on that situation. So there's that.
Yes, there is. Meanwhile, there's the spot that is for Duke's analysis, DNRonline.com, and it's Shane _DNR Sports. Shane, thank you for your time in the Fast Lane today.
All right, thanks for having me.
Now to the Virginia Tech Hokies.
With Chris Coleman, TechSideline.com. Chris Coleman joining us from TechSideline.com today here in the Fast Lane. Chris, great to be speaking with you. We could talk about your great positional previews of quarterback, running back, and tight end, and we may get to that in a moment. But your colleague, Brendan Patterson, had a great article, Fatigue Makes Cowards of Us All. It's a strength and conditioning look, playing off the old Vince Lombardi, Jimmy Johnson quote that both of those two use so regularly. But it's about Jarrett Ferguson, the former Stanton River Golden Eagle from our backyard in Lynchburg, Virginia. He is now the strength coach at Virginia Tech. How much of a difference do you believe this will make even in the first year for a Tech program that frankly struggled in that area in close games under the prior administration?
Yeah, it's interesting. When Pride made changes there, he sort of threw the old strength and conditioning coach under the bus when he talked about conditioning and things like that. And, we did see Virginia Tech lose a lot of close games late last year, some of those in which they had leads late in the game. And I think it's a variety of issues. You can point to conditioning, you can point to bad coordinating, and Fry made changes there as well. So I think it was a group effort. But, as far as Ferguson goes, I think he's the guy I would have hired. I don't exactly have a Rolodex of strength coaches to go through, but I think he'll do the job. How much of a difference we can see, it depends. There's the strength aspect and the conditioning aspect. We could see conditioning improvements quickly. The strength part of it generally takes a little longer to determine how something works. You don't turn an 18 or a 19-year-old into a physical beast just overnight. That takes 2-3 years, an entire career of strength and conditioning before you can fully gauge things. But I'm inclined to believe that Virginia Tech has the right guy in charge of that program now.
Chris, your TechSideline.com colleague, Andy Bitter, wrote about the trip to Claytor Lake for team bonding. And this is not sipping fruity drinks and getting your toes in the sand type of Claytor Lake trip. This is, obstacle courses and other challenges with no cell phones for an extended period of time. I wish I knew how many players might have had like the Tourette's, with all due respect, of people trying to, not withdrawal syndromes from not being active on their mobile phone. To get my usher on for a moment in the fast lane, I must confess I would be in that category. So no shade thrown. But how big of that, plus the Jarrett Ferguson presence, while it may not improve the strength right now, it might help for Virginia Tech in terms of something you've talked about often and the players mentioned at the ACC football kickoff, which is the team bonding element and the lack of cliques.
It seems like that they felt like there was a lack of team bonding last year. There were maybe a few more guys interested in themselves than the team itself. I think you can even look at Drones last year. He went down to Florida to work out with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and wasn't even in Blacksburg for a good chunk of the summer. And the difference this year is, yes, he went south to work out again, but this time he took like 8 or 9 of his wide receivers with him, right? He paid for them to go down there. So I think there is a realization that they did not take the team building aspect of it last year as seriously as they should have. And we're seeing them trying to correct that in numerous ways. The coaching staff itself has obviously done some things like the Claytor Lake trip, but you've also seen some players take things into their, like Drones taking those guys to Florida with him. I think that's a good sign. So we can't redo last season as much as all Tech fans wish they could. The only thing we can expect at this point is that they have identified the problems of last year and have taken steps to correct them. And so far, it seems like they're doing that.
We talk about versatility a lot, and you would think that should be a quality that coaches can master or at least implement now, given that rosters are just so different from year to year. How equipped, though, are Sam Cephas, the defensive coordinator, and even Philip Montgomery, the offensive coordinator / quarterback coach with Kyron Drones, how equipped are they to be able to allow for the versatility that this team has, especially to get off to a fast start against South Carolina and Vanderbilt, which, by the way, our listeners can hear all Tech games, including those, on the VTRN Sports app?
I think Cephas is particularly adapt to it. He changed defensive systems slightly when he was at Wofford from one year to the next, depending on personnel. And I think that's a key to coaching going forward at this level. I don't think you can sit here and say, well, I'm going to have the same personnel returning every year. It's just going to be the high school guys I recruit. I'm recruiting to this specific system. Maybe you can do that at the absolute upper levels like the Ohio States where you can get anybody you want. But for most people, you can't do that. You've got to have coaches who can adapt their systems each year to the personnel that they have. And I believe that Sam Cephas can do that. Montgomery, we'll see. Now, I think we've seen some adaptations to his offense through time, but at the same time, his quarterback play, wasn't as good once you got on to his era at Tulsa. Most of his reputation is built still on what those Baylor quarterbacks did when he was offensive coordinator there, whereas his Tulsa quarterbacks, when he was head coach and offensive coordinator, weren't as productive. So we'll see about him. What I like about him as offensive coordinator, I like the combination with him and Brent Davis, who's Army's former offensive coordinator and who is now Virginia Tech's tight ends coach. He knows everything there is to know about option football. So if they can marry those two styles to a certain extent, I think that could suit Tech's personnel.
We're chatting with Chris Coleman of TechSideline.com, lead analyst with us here in the Fast Lane, and we'll wrap it up on this. When Brent Pry and the coaching staff spoke with the media over the last week, Kyle Alterner, who is the center transfer and freshman, redshirt freshman from West Virginia, familiar with Matt Moore, but he gets thrown into the fire against two SEC defenses. Yes, that means there are
dollar bills, y'all.
often being invested in that position, as Kenny Powers would remind us. How equipped is he, and how concerned are you that, Alterner may be the right fit for this job, but, it might kind of look like the initial Tyrod Taylor game. I think his first game was kind of getting thrown into the fire against LSU, and that was so unenviable. He was great after that, but may not have the early indication may not be the correct picture of what Alterner could ultimately bring by the back half of the season.
Yeah, we should have a pretty good scouting report on him early on at the very least. But yeah, that is getting thrown right into the fire. I do. He's going to be a good player, in my opinion. I don't think that they'd be talking him up this much if they weren't 100% convinced that he was going to be a really, really good player long term for the Hokies. And they didn't go out and try to pursue a center with experience in the transfer portal. If they did, it didn't seem to be public information. So I think they've been pretty confident in him the whole time. Joe Rudolph. Why did I say Joe Rudolph? Matt Moore recruited him to West Virginia. So he's got a pretty good idea of his skill set, and he is a guy who will improve with time. But I think he'll have a decent season as a freshman. Maybe not week one, but I think he'll do an okay job this year and just continue to get better after that.
Yes, well, we'll ultimately see about that. That was the infamous undefeated in regulation LSU team we were referencing that made the BCS championship game because their slogan was "We're undefeated in regulation, so we should go," even though we have multiple losses. May we all have great sales pitches, quite like that one for you, Chris, and for us at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. In the meantime, we'll have to resort to lesser means here, although hopefully it wasn't lesser for you. Certainly not for us. Your insight was great today in the Fast Lane.
Hey, appreciate that, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
Indeed. Chris Coleman with us here in the Fast Lane. When we come back, we will pivot away from that, touching on a little NASCAR, a little Washington Commanders. How concerned should we be? Trey was discussing that with Ty in the morning warm-up, and the Lynchburg Hillcats, and maybe a little UVA as well. This is the Fast Lane, VTR and Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTR in Sports.
Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
Pull up a seat and join our conversation. Around the Table with Vicki is my new local radio show and podcast discussing leadership, entrepreneurship, philanthropy, faith, and family.
So obviously in entrepreneurship, there's a lot of challenges, that people only typically talk about all the great things, but there's also a lot of challenges that come with entrepreneurship and sacrifice and lessons learned. So what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced throughout business, and how did you overcome them?
Good question. I think this sounds so crazy, but when you're young and you're in you get a couple things in a row that work for you, you get this mentality that you can just accomplish whatever you put your mind to it. And there's a lot of truth to that. If you push yourself, and maybe you don't know everything, but you learn, you read, you surround yourself with folks that can help you get to that point, you just keep struggling. You get knocked back sometimes. You don't achieve your goal. Something doesn't happen in the time frame that you want. You just keep going. Mm-hmm. I know there was times where I always had these, I'm a goal-driven person where I make a list every night of what I want to do. And,
you do.
And, then you get to work and things happen and they don't get done. But
and you come home and say, I didn't get anything done on my list.
So,
yeah.
but it helps me know what my focus is.
Around the Table with Vicki, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on WIQO.
Looking to grow your business and reach new customers? Your audience is waiting right here on Virginia Talk Radio Network, and its 8 over-the-air radio stations and digital platforms is the best advertising option in Virginia. Our loyal listeners tune in daily, ready to hear about products and services just like yours. With targeted advertising, you can reach the right people at the right time. Whether you're promoting a sale, a new product, or simply building brand awareness, we've got you covered. We have the products. We deliver 3 audio formats: classic hits, news, talk, information, and sports, to 8 over-the-air, FM, and AM radio stations. Ready to get started? Contact us today. And let's create an ad campaign that delivers results. In 2024, we started 886,539 digital streams. So VTRN is the place where your business gets heard. Call Melinda 434-534-8500 or info@virginiatalkradionetwork.com.
I'm not mysterious. I understand that. Well, that's one of the things I'm not.
This is The Rich Eisen Show.
Oh, my word.
The Rich Eisen Show.
You are listening to the home of The Rich Eisen Show, hosted by me, Rich Eisen.
Watch out, cause I'm coming for you.
Tune in weekdays for the very best in the world of sports and entertainment with me.
I'm coming after you like every day.
The Rich Eisen Show.
Your humble host on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, now 12 to 3 on your Virginia Talk Radio Network. Head to lynchburg-hillcats.com to lock in your tickets for the Lynchburg Hillcats this season. Now here's VTRN Sports.
Did you kill Bill Walsh? Huh? What did he say?
You heard him. Anyway. Okay, got it, Alex. Anyway, Bo.
I'm not sure how that happened. Now we went from no rejoin music to a brief interruption for somehow in the fast lane with some Jim Rome shtick. But we're back in the fast lane. We got some rejoin music, or rejoin to this part.
It's time for your teams and topics. Covering the Commonwealth, a look at teams and topics from around the Commonwealth. Let's start with, just for you haters, left hand up the Commanders.
Well, there's a lot to hate on from the Washington Commanders preseason game at the New England Patriots. Candy Waller is with us in the fast lane, Madam President from Bowie TV Sports. Seawall, the highlight, though, was looking at your social media account, particularly CEO Seawall on Instagram, where afterwards somebody captured a photo of you, Donna Hopkins. She needs to follow us back on social media. I'm going to act like a middle schooler for a second here. And then Lake Lewis, who is a friend of ours and will be with Trey tomorrow in the morning warm-up, 7 to 8 a.m. right here on the VTRN Sports app and 93.3 FM in Lynchburg. But all three of you guys were hard at work. I mean, you seem like, we know the answer is yes, of course, but for those not familiar, how much does that show just how intensely focused you are when you are doing your job that seems like you're not really focused on the other cameras around?
Oh, yeah. I barely even notice, which is a good thing and a bad thing, right? You need to know when other people are taking pictures, but I guess at this point, there's so many cameras around, and there was a lot to talk about after Friday night's preseason game, so I really didn't notice the cameras.
Well, we noticed Seawall, Candy Waller, Madam President of Bowie TV Sports, with us here in the fast lane. And unfortunately for Washington Commanders fans, not a lot of it was good in terms of talking about against the New England Patriots. 17-0 at the end of the first quarter. They trailed 27-3 at halftime. I get it. You're not getting a lot of Jaden Daniels and the rest of the starters, but how concerning is this just given how the Washington Commanders really looked, we'll call it lackluster in their preseason opener?
I mean, I think it was just one of those things where when you think about the Commander standard and what we've already seen so much from this team, it was extremely bizarre to see such a team that was just completely not into it. Right. I know that some folks may say, okay, it wasn't the starters or it's just the preseason, but clearly this is a team that has a standard and that standard wasn't met.
No, it was not. I mean, it wasn't even close to that. And you guys captured it as well. Adam Peters, general manager, and Dan Quinn, William and Mary guy, head coach of the Washington Commanders, walking off. Were they as upset as they appeared in the photos that you captured for Bowie TV Sports and CEO Seawall Instagram and Seawall SE on Twitter?
Absolutely. One of the other things that I posted on my CEO Seawall and on my X as well at Seawall SE is my questions to Dan Quinn after the game. And that may have been the most upset I've seen him since I've gotten to know him in the last year. I've talked about, the disappointment of the NFC Championship game. I've talked about how they were week 1 against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last year. But yes, the first preseason game of the year, and he was mad.
So you mentioned how upset. Is that performance-based? Is that effort-based? A combination of that, Seawall?
I want to say a combination of that. I don't think, the preseason, one thing the preseason is not about is about wins and losses, right? But it is absolutely about the effort. And what Coach Quinn was sharing with us yesterday, right now, it's still about play style and identity. And you didn't see any of that really. I mean, you saw it in a couple of players like a Jeremy Reeves, Johnny Newton, right? But like a couple, that's it, literally, like 2 that really showed that Washington Commanders standard. So I think it was definitely around the play style, the identity. It just wasn't up to par at all across the board for what this team wants to be known for.
Candy Waller with us in the fast lane. She's our on-site reporter for the Washington Commanders and joining us now. A lot to unpack, which is why we're going longer than we often do, which is not a bad thing. It's a great thing, of course, Seawall, that we've got your expertise on which we can trust. But tell me if this observation is off base or not. Trey, you can steal this tomorrow in your chat with Lake Lewis. Just remember that Seawall got the response in before Lake Lewis did, since we'll get our Coach Prime on for just a second.
And guess what? We keep receiving.
Of course. The downside, and there are not many, to a Jaden Daniels is when you're the Commanders, they haven't quite figured out how to win when he's not in the lineup or things of that nature. And granted, I hope you don't get confronted with that scenario, but I'll use the Chiefs as an example. They've had situations where Chad Henne's had to fill in for Patrick Mahomes or Chase Daniel or insert your other backup. And Andy Reid has found ways to win games. It's not ideal, of course. You'd love to have Mahomes, but they found a way to win games. And the team around Mahomes, when he's not there, they've all found a way to elevate their play. How much is that a challenge for the Washington Commanders that preseason's an example right now that maybe you're in a spot where Daniels misses a game or 2, hopefully nothing serious. But if he does, you got to learn how to step your game up if you're the Commanders. And now is where you have to learn that.
Well, I mean, one good thing is this team does have Marcus Mariota, who helped to win the team 2 games last year when he had to come in for the Carolina Panthers when, come to find out, Jaden Daniels had a broken rib. And at the Dallas game at the end of the regular season. So that is 2. But here's the thing. Right now, Marcus Mariota is injured. We will learn tomorrow, more tomorrow morning from Coach Quinn on what this injury is. It is said to not be anything concerned about, nothing long term, but yet still he is injured. What you saw on Friday night was Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson competing for the 3rd string quarterback. So if you are, to your point, in a situation where Marcus Mariota can't play, Jaden's not playing for whatever reason, right? Either one of them, you have to rely on the 3rd string. That's not good based on what we all saw on Friday. Now, could that also be different if the 3rd string is playing with the starters in those offensive roles? Maybe. But quarterback play was off. And it is a drastic difference from what you've seen in Jaden Daniels, of course, and even from Marcus Mariota, in my opinion.
Her name is officially Candy Waller. We have to get that in because she's got some family in the area. But, all of us, we just know her as Seawall, and Madam President of Bowie TV Sports. Seawall, great insight today. Thank you so much for breaking down a concerning, but maybe not the most concerning possible loss for the Commanders because it's still early and a chance to work out a lot of these kinks, which they have to before the opener coming up in about a month.
Yeah, exactly right. I'll be talking to you guys again soon.
Now to the Lynchburg Hillcats.
Jason Prill with us here in the fast lane, and it came down in a flurry this afternoon, which we'll get to in a moment if we don't have him. Do we have Hootie on the line, by the way, TJ? Do we have Hootie?
No, we do not.
Or Phil Alloway?
No, we do not have him on the line because
right.
Seawall and Jason were on our lines at the moment.
All right, no problem. We'll get to Jason Prill as soon as we get a chance to. The point we were going to bring up, though, as we get inside baseball right here in the fast lane is, again, a lot of roster moves came from the Lynchburg Hillcats today. In fact, 6 different new moves who came from players getting called up to or from the Lynchburg Hillcats, not to mention 2 more being released. So you've got a high volume of players that are on the move already. Jason, good to be speaking with you in the fast lane. Jason Prill, play-by-play broadcaster, Lynchburg Hillcats. 6 players called up from or called up to the Lynchburg Hillcats, plus 2 more. Outfielder Chris Espinola and catcher Robert Lopez, both released from the Cleveland Guardians organization. How does this impact the Lynchburg Hillcats? More importantly, their quest to finish strong the last couple of weeks of the regular season and to make a push for that Carolina League championship.
Well, it is a huge change for a roster that hasn't seen a ton of turnover the entire season. Lynchburg is now with only 14 players from that Carolina League championship or clinching team in the first half. So this is a brand new ball club. I mean, 33% of their roster in one day has been turned over on its head. So this is a team that's going to have to take a week or so to try and figure each other out. A lot of these guys maybe haven't played in a month or so since the college baseball season ended. So they're going to take some time to get used to the rhythms of playing every single day at the professional level because it is different. However, I think it's going to be a spark plug. A lot of these guys and a lot of big bats. We're going to see a lot of power, a lot of fireworks. So I think it's going to provide some offensive spark. I'm excited about some of the pitchers that are coming in. So it should be a huge momentum boost going into the final few weeks and then into the postseason.
2 of the next 3 weeks for the Lynchburg Hillcats. They've got 4 series left, 2 home, 2 away. But 2 of the next 3 are at Lynchburg City Stadium, and their broadcaster, Jason Prill, is with us here in the fast lane. Jason, how imperative is it for the Hillcats to have a strong series here against Delmarva? They're in the playoffs, but to start getting that momentum going where these pieces gel.
Yeah, now's the time you got to start finding your rhythm again. And Lynchburg in the first round has a chance to host 2 games depending on how things play out. So you need to have some home cooking. You need to take advantage of that home field advantage of the postseason. So starting now, picking up some wins against teams like Delmarva, who have struggled all season, these are the moments where you have to start finding that energy. You have to start finding those winning and get rid of those bad traits and those bad habits that the team has fallen into the past month.
Chris Coleman of TechSideline.com and Shane Metlin were earlier. Most recently, it was chatting a little bit about the Washington Commanders with Candy Waller. Now it's been Jason Prill, play-by-play broadcaster for the Lynchburg Hillcats. For those wondering the quirkiness of our schedule, no worries, though. We've got a great chance to chat with you, Jason. We appreciate your knowledge and insight. Thank you for some time today in the Fast Lane.
Yeah, no problem at any time.
It's our pleasure. Jason Prill, play-by-play broadcaster, with us here in the Fast Lane.
Now to
NASCAR or NASCAR. It felt like a lot of Z's being put up yesterday as Shane Van Gisbergen once again dominated the road course, this time at Watkins Glen, winning by over 11 seconds. Phil Alloway, frontstretch.com, with us in the Fast Lane. Phil, first of all, the appreciation level of Shane Van Gisbergen, we'll get that part out of the way. How much should we appreciate the fact that this guy has come in and he's got 4 wins? And while, the discipline may not translate to a NASCAR championship because the final 8 and final race of the year are not the ones that are on road courses, he's done enough for Trackhouse to single-handedly guarantee they get victories, more exposure, and be in a strong enough spot where they might make the final 8 because there's a road race in the 12th round, the round of 12, going on in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. First off, happy to be back here. But from what I've seen, generally the fans have really taken to Shane. He comes off as a legitimately genuine person, and he's really, really talented. The fact that he comes from what's now the Repco Supercars Championship, now that we have the next gen car, the two are actually quite similar in certain ways. The next gen car has a little more power than a supercar does, but basically, he's coming in here basically with experience in the same kind of car. So, and he was already really, really good on road courses to begin with. So it's almost like he has an unfair advantage over the rest of the field, just because of the fact that he was racing these somewhat similar cars in the next gen for years on road courses and street courses. It's what you're going to see over the next couple of years is everyone else having to catch up.
It puts the standard a lot higher. How much of that is part of the reason why the NASCAR racing has been uninspiring at places like Watkins Glen and other road races? because Shane Van Gisbergen is just such an expert? How much of it is the card that also makes it challenging to even get close to him?
It's probably more the car than anything else. These diffusers that they have on the next gen cars today are pulling up a lot of wake, and it makes it hard to follow. Which is, interestingly enough, one of the major gripes that drivers such as Shane Van Gisbergen and Scott McLaughlin had against the previous generation V8 supercar. So you try to get away from that, and you end up with another similar situation.
Phil Alloway of FrontStretch.com with us here in the Fast Lane. Phil, when does the racing return to the type where fans have seen side by side? Is it just intermediate, so we're waiting till like Darlington in the first round of the playoffs, or do you think Richmond might produce some of that this coming weekend?
It's possible that you could get side-by-side racing at Richmond. The track surface there is 20-plus years old now, and the groove gets ultra-wide. So it is theoretically possible that you could see some at Richmond, although it might only come in sections of the race. Outside of that, well, Daytona's Daytona. You know what you're going to get there. Outside of that, Darlington's probably the next place up, and intermediates have trended to be the best tracks for this car.
Phil Alloway, FrontStretch.com NASCAR reporter, was on site at Watkins Glen yesterday and with us in the Fast Lane. Phil, great insight as always. Thank you so much. We much appreciate it and look forward to speaking soon.
Thank you, Ed. Have a great night.
And last but not least, or maybe least, UVA.
With JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Ratcliffe, W227BG Timberlake, WVGM AM Lynchburg, WMNA Gretna Danville Southside, and the Virginia Talk Radio Network and VTRN Sports app. Hootie, great to be speaking with you. Virginia Cavaliers, they're in the midst of fall camp as well. Offensive line injuries, though, have been a real concern for the Virginia Cavaliers. First, it was Monroe Mills on the right tackle, or on the left tackle side. Meanwhile, the right tackle, McKalen Thomas, he's likely out for 3 months, and that may mean a redshirt year coming up for him, as was confirmed last week. Is this concerning, or is this just Virginia maybe getting a sly smile to an extent that this is why we put as much into the program as we did?
Well, it's probably fortunate that they recruited and signed as much depth as they did on the offensive line. Even though they had those 2 losses, and by the way, both those guys were injured in non-contact drills. They have plenty of other options to play at right tackle, and that's the one thing that we felt like was going to be a strength of this team is the depth that they signed through the transfer portal. So even though they lost 2 guys that were potential starters at that one position, they still have enough depth to where I don't think there's a huge drop off there, so that they should be able to be okay. But they certainly can't continue to do this throughout camp. That's for sure.
Well, you can't, especially at a position like the offensive line. How much of this is it trust in offensive line coach Terry Effernan? Is it pressure to finally perform now that there's more resources that have been pumped into this? How do you reconcile his position and what's expected out of an O-line to keep an injury-prone at times quarterback in Chandler Morris healthy?
Well, yeah, there's pressure everywhere, and particularly on the offensive line. That's been seen as the weakest point of the program ever since Elliott took a hold of the reins 3 years ago. And that's why the quarterbacks have had to run for their lives. That's why the running game has never really come to fruition. And it's been tough because the offensive line coach is every week has to go into his position room and take a head count to see who's healthy, who can play, who's sick, and often has had to play guys that either were playing out of position or really weren't ready to play yet. So it's been a lot of pressure on him, and even more so now because even though he's got the talent through the portal, they've still got to prove it on the field, and that's going to be the big thing. And I think the whole key to success for this season is whether the offensive line can deliver.
JerryRatcliffe.com founder and contributor Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe with us here in the fast lane. On that note, with the offensive line, in prior years they were good, but it didn't look like there was a major size advantage. One of the talks that's come out of Virginia, and you've written about this and among many other topics at JerryRatcliffe.com, is the size of this team compared to prior seasons. Are you buying that after having seen them in practice now for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I believe that they are bigger, stronger, faster, and more experienced for certain. We haven't seen this kind of depth on a Virginia team in, maybe a couple of decades, maybe going all the way back to the early Al Groh years. And I think it has shown so far in practice. We get limited views from the media standpoint before they throw us out of practice. But just from what we've been able to see, it looks like this team is more physical and stronger and obviously a little faster too. So they have no excuses, Ed. If they don't win this season, it's because of coaching and the fact that they can't win close games in the white knuckle time.
No doubt about it. The expectations are there, and the expectation for great insight is always high because you'll get it at JerryRatcliffe.com. Hootie, great to speak with you today. Thank you again for your time in the fast lane.
Glad to be with you, Ed.
Our pleasure. Jerry Ratcliffe with us here to wrap up the fast lane. That does it for us today. More sports talk tomorrow. Who knows what high school will preview? We'll have some Liberty Flames talk, including scheduled John Manson from AseaofRed.com. That tomorrow in the fast lane, VTR and Sports app. Ask that smart speaker, open VTR and Sports. Fast lane, that lane where you listen to podcasts. Now on to VSiN's Make It Rain with Adam Shine in progress.
At the Milwaukee Brewers right now, trending in the right direction. As far as the New York Mets, they are trending in the opposite direction. And the Mets, even though they were 4 for 9 with runners